This morning I thought we'd connect the fact that obedience to Jehovah always leads to his blessing. And let's take the apostles as an example. Acts chapter 6, it'd be good to read it. It's mentioned in our comments. And one of the commenters connected the fact that they were involved with feeding previously, literal food that Jesus miraculously provided. But there's some things of interest here from the first century, and then we'll bring it up in a moment to the modern day. Let's read verses 1 through 4 of Acts chapter 6. Now in those days when the disciples were increasing, the Greek-speaking Jews began complaining against the Hebrew-speaking Jews because their widows were being overlooked in the daily distribution. So the 12 called the multitude of the disciples together and said, "It is not right for us to leave the word of God to distribute food to tables. So, brothers, select for yourselves 7 reputable men from among you, full of spirit and wisdom, that we may appoint them over this necessary matter. But we will devote ourselves to prayer and to the ministry of the word." So this is what Jehovah wanted them to be focusing on. They should not leave the word of God. They should be devoting themselves to prayer and to the ministry of the word. That was the focus. And they recognized that. And it's apparent as you look through the account in Acts that they were obedient to this and Jehovah blessed them. Because later, go to Acts chapter 16, please. Things progressed, and then they end up with various decisions that had to be made, and the governing body did enlarge beyond the apostles there in the first century, as we know. So after some of these things were discussed at that level, and they had been devoting themselves to the ministry of the word and to prayer, obviously, well, what's the results? Did Jehovah bless them? Well, the decisions were made. Now notice here in verse 4 of Acts 16. As they traveled on through the cities, they would deliver to them, all the congregations, for observance the decrees that had been decided on by the apostles and the elders who were in Jerusalem. So these decrees went out, and because of their devoting themselves to the ministry of the word and prayer, did Jehovah bless them? Did he bless those that obeyed the decrees? Was obedience leading to Jehovah's blessing for them as well? Well, notice verse 5. Then, indeed, the congregations continued to be made firm in the faith and to increase in number day by day. So obviously Jehovah blessed the obedience that was displayed once these decrees were sent out. Now let's bring it up to modern day here, and you'll find this quite interesting. I did. I assume you might find it of interest. But here in verse 4, if you look at the original language about decrees, I noticed that the Greek there, the word dogmata. Well, you can hear the word dogma there. Well, things have changed. What it means in English now is certainly not anything we want to say the faithful slave is guilty of. Notice here what dictionaries have had to say. If you refer to a belief or a system of beliefs as a dogma, you disapprove of it because people are expected to accept that it is true without questioning it. A dogmatic view obviously is undesirable. And one other dictionary said if you say someone is dogmatic, you are critical of them because they are convinced that they are right and refuse to consider that other opinions might also be justified. Well, I don't think we would want to apply this to decisions that come out from the faithful slave in our time. Now, we have apostates and opposers that would like God's people to think that the faithful slave is dogmatic, and they expect you to accept everything that comes out from headquarters as if it's dogma, arbitrarily decided. Well, this does not apply, and that's why it's properly translated decrees. And in our day, like Brother Cummers prayed, and often the brothers do, about decisions that will be made, not just by the governing body, but branch committees. This is a theocratic arrangement. Jehovah's blessing the faithful slave. And you need to keep in mind, we've made this point, but keep your place here in Acts 16, but look again at Matthew 24, and we've made this point in the past on verse 45. When the question was raised, and now it's been answered in our day, Acts 24, verse 45, who really is the faithful and discreet slave? Singular, see? Whom his master appointed over his domestics to give them their food at the proper time. So this is obvious that this slave is a composite slave. The decisions that are made by the faithful slave today are made collectively. So no one man's making these decisions. These decisions, if you want to call them a decree, are made collectively. So when that direction comes out to branch committee members or when it comes out to the congregations, if you want Jehovah's blessing on you as an individual or family, certainly as an elder or a congregation, it'd be best to just ask Jehovah to help you understand it, but obey the decision. See, that's the same thing's going to happen today, happened in the first century. Notice in verse 4 and 5 of Acts 16, I asked you to keep your place there. So when circuit overseers visit, and they've brought information from the faithful slave, when branch committee members meet to discuss things and go by the guidelines, well, what's the result? According to verse 5, then. See, when these are obeyed, then, indeed, you're going to be made firm in the faith. Congregations will increase. Branch territories will increase day by day. Why? Because as we mentioned in the beginning, Jehovah blesses obedience. This is a theocracy ruled by God, not a collection of man-made decisions. This is governed from heaven.